She insulted me at my own birthday party on Wall Street, so I walked out and left her completely broke. Welcome to Amelia's Stories. Stay tuned because this is a real story of love, trust, and betrayal. If you're new, drop your location in the comments and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Ethan Parker was 32, a hardworking investment banker in New York. He wasn't flashy, but he believed in hard work and loyalty. Tonight was his special night, a birthday celebration with colleagues and close friends at a high-end restaurant on Wall Street. Everything was perfect except for one thing: Madison Carter. Madison was his girlfriend of 3 years. Beautiful, stylish, and someone Ethan had always supported, financially and emotionally. He paid her bills, helped her with her boutique business, and even gave her a life she had only dreamed of. But tonight, Madison arrived late, wearing a frown instead of a smile. The moment she walked in, Ethan felt something was off. She barely greeted him and started sipping champagne like she didn't care. Then out of nowhere she laughed loudly and said in front of everyone, "Ethan, you're so boring and predictable. Honestly, sometimes I wonder why I settled for you. Maybe your money is the only exciting thing about you." The room froze. Conversations stopped. His friends looked away awkwardly. Ethan's chest tightened, not just from embarrassment, but from the cruel realization that the woman he loved didn't respect him at all. Something deeper was broken. He smiled faintly, excused himself, and walked out into the cold New York night, knowing this was only the beginning of what he had to do next. It all started 3 years ago at a charity gala in Manhattan. Ethan wasn't the type to attend flashy events, but his boss insisted he make an appearance. He wore a simple black suit, sipped on a glass of wine, and stood near the silent auction table when he first saw her. Madison Carter. She was stunning, dressed in a deep blue gown, her laugh carrying easily through the room. She looked confident, but there was something in her eyes that hinted at struggle. They struck up a conversation. Madison was quick-witted and full of charm, sharing stories about her passion for fashion and dreams of owning her own boutique one day. She confessed that life hadn't been easy: student loans, credit card debts, and a string of jobs that barely paid the bills. Ethan listened, intrigued and sympathetic. He admired her ambition and the way she talked about wanting more out of life. One date turned into many. Before long, Ethan was captivated. Madison wasn't just beautiful, she had a fire that made him feel alive. When she spoke about her struggles, Ethan didn't see red flags. He saw opportunities to help. He believed in building a future together, so he stepped in. First, he helped her clear her debts. Then he invited her to move into his luxury apartment overlooking Central Park. Madison cried tears of gratitude, promising she'd never forget what he had done for her. When Madison shared her dream of starting a boutique, Ethan didn't hesitate. He invested tens of thousands to make it happen. "It's not just your dream," he told her. "It's ours." He was proud, certain that supporting her ambitions meant they were building something lasting. But not everyone saw it that way. His friends warned him, "She's using you, Ethan. Open your eyes." Ethan brushed it off. They didn't know her like he did. Madison wasn't a gold digger. She was ambitious, driven, and just needed a little push. Still, there were small cracks he chose to ignore. Madison always wanted the best: designer clothes, exclusive parties, the kind of lifestyle Ethan worked long hours to provide. She seemed happiest when the champagne flowed and cameras flashed. Ethan told himself it was harmless, that she deserved nice things after struggling for so long. But deep down, a part of him wondered if he could ever give her enough to satisfy that hunger for status and attention. Back then, love blinded him to the truth. Madison wasn't just chasing dreams. She was chasing luxury, and Ethan was her ticket to it all. The music was soft, glasses clinking, and laughter filled the room. Ethan stood among his friends and colleagues, smiling as they toasted to his birthday. For a moment he almost forgot the unease from earlier, until Madison's voice cut through the chatter like a blade. "You know what's funny?" she said, her tone loud enough to silence nearby conversations. "Sometimes I think I really settled with Ethan. My ex had so much more excitement. But hey," she smirked, swirling her champagne, "at least Ethan has money. That's the only thing that keeps life interesting." The room froze. A few guests shifted uncomfortably, pretending to check their phones. Others stared at Ethan, waiting for his reaction. His chest tightened, his jaw stiff, but he didn't say a word. This wasn't just an insult. It was a deliberate humiliation in front of everyone he respected. Someone let out an awkward laugh, hoping it was a joke. But Madison wasn't joking. She leaned back in her chair, satisfied, like she wanted the words to sting. And they did. Ethan's boss stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder and murmuring, "You deserve better, son." The weight of those words hit hard because deep down Ethan knew it was true. He scanned the room, eyes full of pity, whispers starting to ripple. His birthday party had turned into a spectacle. Without a word, Ethan placed his glass on the table and stood up. Madison glanced at him, smirking as if daring him to react. He didn't give her the satisfaction. Ethan walked out into the cold night air, his heart pounding, his pride shattered. One thing was clear. Whatever this was, it wasn't love anymore. And Madison had no idea what her cruel joke had just set in motion. Ethan didn't go home that night. He booked a quiet hotel room in Midtown, staring at the city lights until they blurred. Sleep never came. The party replayed in his head, her words echoing like a cruel joke he couldn't escape. By dawn he made a decision. He needed answers. The next morning Ethan drove back to his apartment. The place felt colder than usual, almost foreign. Madison wasn't there. He walked into her home office, sat at her desk and opened her laptop. What he found twisted his stomach. First came the bank statements. Their joint account, which Ethan had funded generously, was nearly empty. Transaction after transaction showed large transfers to Madison's boutique, not for staff or rent. These were personal indulgences. Designer inventory, luxury furniture, private events to boost her brand. She had been draining him without a word. Then he saw the emails. One thread in particular made his chest ache. Madison had been exchanging flirtatious messages with a wealthy client, someone who promised her a world far more exciting than Ethan ever could. Her replies burned in his mind. Ethan is safe for now, but he's so predictable. I need someone who makes me feel alive. For a moment Ethan just sat there staring at the screen. The woman he'd trusted, supported, and loved had turned his generosity into a game. It wasn't just betrayal, it was calculated. His heartbreak hardened into something darker. Anger pulsed through his veins, cold and steady. He thought he was predictable. She thought she could humiliate him, use him, and walk away untouched. Ethan closed the laptop slowly, his reflection in the screen sharp and unrecognizable. If Madison wanted excitement, she was about to get more than she ever bargained for. Ethan knew he couldn't keep this to himself, so he called the one person he trusted most, Ryan Mitchell, his childhood best friend. They met at a quiet cafe on the Upper East Side, away from curious eyes. Ryan listened silently as Ethan laid everything out, the insults, the empty accounts, the emails. When Ethan finished, his friend's jaw tightened. "Don't just walk away," Ryan said firmly. "Make her feel the consequences. She played with your life, Ethan. Don't let her walk out laughing." Those words lit something inside him. For years he had been the man who fixed problems, who gave more than he ever took. Not this time. Madison wanted luxury. She was about to lose every piece of it. That night Ethan started moving quietly. Every account that had his name alone, stocks, savings, investments, was shifted beyond her reach. Next came the apartment. Technically it was his lease. Madison had no claim. A single email to his lawyer began the process of removing her access entirely. Credit cards? Cancelled. Every one of them. Boutique investments? Pulled overnight. The business she flaunted on social media would soon be nothing more than a failed dream. By the time Madison realized what was happening, it would be too late. Ethan sat back in his chair watching the paperwork stack grow. Felt surreal, cold, calculated, and absolutely necessary. He wasn't just ending a relationship, he was ending her free ride. By the end of the week, everything was ready. Ethan looked out at the city skyline, his jaw set. Madison thought she had control, but the truth was simple. Every part of her glamorous life existed because of him. And now he was taking it all back. The stage wasn't just set, it was perfect. When Ethan walked into the apartment, Madison was already pacing, her heels clicking against the marble floor. The moment she saw him, her eyes narrowed. "Where the hell did you go last night?" she snapped. "You embarrassed me, Ethan. Leaving your own party. What were you thinking?" Ethan set his keys down slowly, his face calm, almost unreadable. "Embarrassed you?" he said quietly. "Let's talk about that." He placed a folder on the coffee table and slid it toward her. Inside were the bank statements, the emails, the proof of every betrayal she thought he'd never find. Madison froze, her confidence cracking as she flipped through the pages. "What is this?" she whispered, then louder. "You went through my stuff. You're insane." Ethan didn't flinch. "I trusted you. I gave you everything. And you drained me while mocking me in front of everyone I know." Madison's face turned red. "I did it for us. You were never around, Ethan. I needed attention, something you couldn't give me. Her voice cracked as the anger turned into desperation. Please, I made a mistake. We can fix this. Ethan stood still, his voice steady. You insulted me in public, Madison. I'm ending this in public too. Her eyes widened. What are you saying? You have 48 hours to move out, he said coldly. After that you won't have access to the apartment, the cards, or the business. It's over. Madison lunged toward him, tears streaming down her face, but Ethan stepped back. There was no rage in his tone, no shouting, just finality. For the first time, Madison realized the truth. The man she thought would always forgive her wasn't forgiving this time. And there was nothing she could do to stop it. The morning after the showdown, Ethan made the final calls. The boutique funding was the first to go. Every cent he had invested was pulled back, leaving Madison's business accounts empty. By noon, the leasing company had repossessed her luxury car. It wasn't hers. It had always been in his name. Finally, he canceled every credit card tied to his accounts. By the end of the day, Madison's world began to collapse. No car, no cards, no cash. The boutique that had made her feel powerful was now on the brink of shutting down. Every call she made to Ethan went unanswered. By the third day she snapped. Storming into Ethan's office, Madison's heels echoed down the marble hallway as she screamed his name. Heads turned as she barged through the glass doors, her face streaked with tears and fury. You can't do this to me, Ethan. I built everything. I loved you, she yelled, voice breaking. She reached for his arm, but security moved in quickly. Please, Ethan. Just talk to me. Ethan stood behind his desk, calm and silent, watching as they pulled her away. Her sobs echoed down the corridor, but he didn't follow. When the doors closed and silence returned, Ethan sank into his chair. For a moment he let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. There was satisfaction, justice even, in seeing her stripped of the luxury she had taken for granted. But beneath it, a dull ache lingered. He had loved her, trusted her, built a life with her. Now that life was gone, and so was she. Still, as he looked out at the skyline, one thought gave him peace. She would never humiliate him again. It didn't take long for Madison's boutique to crumble. Without Ethan's funding, the bills stacked up like a wall closing in. Suppliers pulled out, employees quit, and the grand showroom that once glittered on social media became an empty shell. Within weeks, the business she bragged about was gone. The news spread quickly through their social circle. Manhattan's elite whispered at cocktail parties, and former friends traded knowing looks. Everyone knew what Madison had done and how it ended. Invitations stopped coming. Her phone, once buzzing with compliments and offers, fell silent. Desperate, Madison began reaching out to mutual friends, pleading for help or at least a sympathetic ear. But one by one they distanced themselves. No one wanted to be caught in her storm. The same people who laughed at her jokes at Ethan's party now ignored her calls. Then came the final blow. Ethan heard from a colleague that Madison had reached out to the wealthy client from those emails. The man she once described as exciting. She begged for a second chance, hoping he could rescue her from the mess she had created. His response was brutal. You're too much baggage now. I'm not interested. When Ethan read that message, he felt no joy, no gloating satisfaction, just a quiet sense of closure. Madison, who had mocked him as boring and predictable, was now standing alone in the very world she fought so hard to impress. For the first time she truly understood what it felt like to have nothing. Not money, not friends, not options. And Ethan? He didn't need revenge anymore. The universe had already taken care of it. Months passed, and the storm that once consumed Ethan's life finally settled. The pain didn't vanish overnight, but with time the anger faded and clarity took its place. For the first time in years, he woke up without feeling the weight of someone else's expectations. Ethan began focusing on himself, long runs in Central Park, catching up on books he had ignored, and diving back into hobbies that once made him happy. Slowly, he reconnected with friends he had pushed aside during his relationship. Dinner nights, casual laughs, and honest conversations reminded him what real companionship felt like. When he started dating again, he approached it differently. No more grand gestures or trying to buy love. This time he looked for something money couldn't measure: respect, honesty, and genuine connection. For Ethan, trust mattered more than status, and kindness outshone beauty. One afternoon, while grabbing coffee, he overheard two women whispering about Madison. Curiosity led him to check, and what he learned made him pause. Madison was working in a retail store, folding clothes for a fraction of the lifestyle she once flaunted. The woman who demanded luxury was now living paycheck to paycheck. Ethan felt no thrill in the news, no rush of revenge. Instead, there was a quiet sense of closure. Life had balanced the scales without him lifting a finger. Looking out over the city skyline one evening, Ethan smiled. Not because Madison had fallen, but because he had risen above the chaos. He was lighter now, freer, and for the first time in years, completely in control of his own happiness. Looking back, Ethan realized something powerful. Betrayal cuts deep, but losing yourself in the process cuts deeper. Love can make you blind, but self-respect should never be negotiable. Madison's actions hurt him, but what would have hurt more was staying in a life built on lies. People think revenge is about being cruel, about destroying the other person. For Ethan, it wasn't that. It was about reclaiming control, taking back the power he had given away without question. Madison didn't end up broke because of him. She ended up broke because of her own choices. He simply stopped financing her lies. Did he feel guilty? Not for a second. Madison had a chance at something real, but she chose status over love, greed over loyalty. And when she mocked him in public, she didn't just insult Ethan the man. She insulted everything he had given to build her dreams. Ethan knew then that walking away was the only answer. Not out of spite, but out of strength. Sometimes the greatest act of revenge isn't shouting or fighting or ruining someone. It's silence. It's letting go and moving forward with your head held high. As Ethan closed this chapter of his life, one truth remained clear. The best revenge wasn't leaving her broke. It was walking away with my dignity intact. And with that, he did just that. No drama, no looking back. Just freedom.